This video tutorial will take a look at simplifying expressions with radicals in the denominator. Let's simplify 4 over 7 plus the square root of 3. This expression is not simplified because there is a radical or a square root symbol in the denominator, and we know there cannot be a radical in the denominator. To get rid of the radical symbol on the denominator, we are going to multiply the denominator by its conjugate. This will make more sense as we move forward through this video tutorial. Notice our original denominator was a binomial, and we are multiplying it by its conjugate, which is also a binomial. The only difference is the operation symbol. In our first binomial, it is addition, and in the second, it is subtraction. Remember, if we multiply our denominator by something, we have to multiply the numerator by the exact same thing. Let's simplify our denominator now. We're going to move our denominator down so we have some space to work. Notice that we are multiplying two binomials, 7 plus the square root of 3 times 7 minus the square root of 3. When we multiply binomials, we have to multiply each term in the first binomial by each term in the second binomial. We will start by doing 7 times 7, which is 49. 7 times a negative square root of 3 is minus 7 times the square root of 3. Next, we will multiply a positive square root of 3 times 7, which is a positive 7 times the square root of 3. Lastly, we will multiply a positive square root of 3 times a negative square root of 3, which will be a negative square root of 9. Now we can do a little simplifying. 49 will stay as 49 for the time being. A negative 7 times the square root of 3 and a positive 7 times the square root of 3 cancel one another out. And minus the square root of 9, well, the square root of 9 is 3. So this simplifies to minus 3. And of course, 49 minus 3 is 46. So multiplying our original denominator by its conjugate, we are left with 46. Now that we've taken care of our denominator, let's simplify our numerator. In this, we have 4 times 7 minus the square root of 3. So we can use the distributive property and multiply 4 by 7 and minus square root of 3. We will first do 4 times 7, which is 28, and 4 times minus the square root of 3 is minus 4 times the square root of 3. So we have successfully simplified our numerator. One last piece. Notice in our final answer we have three terms, 28 in red, negative 4 times the square root of 3 in blue, and 46 in green. These all can be divided by 2, so we can simplify just a little bit further by dividing each term by 2. 28 divided by 2 is 14. Minus 4 times the square root of 3 would now be minus 2 times the square root of 3. And 46 divided by 2 would be 23. So our final simplified answer, believe it or not, is 14 minus 2 times the square root of 3 over 23. Let's move on to another example and simplify 5 over 1 minus the square root of 7. We know this is not simplified because there is a square root or radical symbol in the denominator. To undo this, we can multiply our current denominator, 1 minus the square root of 7, by its conjugate, which is 1 plus the square root of 7. Remember, the key is for everything to be the same except our operations. Our original denominator had subtraction, so the conjugate must have addition. If we multiply our denominator by something, we also have to multiply the numerator by that same thing. Let's simplify our denominator. In multiplying two binomials, like we have here, we have to multiply each term in the first binomial by each term in the second binomial. We'll start by doing 1 times 1, which is 1. 1 times a positive square root of 7, which is just a positive square root of 7. Next we will do negative square root of 7 times 1, which is a negative square root of 7. And lastly, negative square root of 7 times positive square root of 7 is negative square root of 49. Now we can simplify this. 1 will stay just as 1 for the time being. Positive square root of 7 and negative square root of 7 will cancel one another out. And we are subtracting the square root of 49, which is 7. So we are left with minus 7. And 1 minus 7 is negative 6. So multiplying our original denominator by its conjugate gives us negative 6. Now we can simplify the numerator by using the distributive property. We will start by multiplying 5 and 1, which is 5, and 5 times a positive square root of 7, which is a positive 5 times the square root of 7. So we have simplified the numerator. Lastly, we want to see if all of the terms share a common factor and can be broken down even further. The three terms are in different colors. 5, a positive 5 times the square root of 7, and negative 6. There are no common factors. So 5 plus 5 times the square root of 7 over negative 6 is our final simplified answer.